Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Double on Radio Gamescast, where we do games things. This is our special Halloween episode, Spooktacular. So,
I'm scared.
as always, I'm your host Ryan, and we're all here today. It's the whole gang because we're doing a nice little horror game book club, essentially. So I'm gonna go down the line and say some names. We got Alex.
Hey.
We got Ben.
Hello. How is everybody doing on this spooky evening?
We got Brett.
Hello.
Got Wyatt.
Ooh.
Oh my god, he's really dead.
We lost him, and we got Tess.
I wish we had a book club.
Well, that's the next podcast. We're making a book club next.
A second ahead of ourselves.
The book's cast.
Double video
Hey, there you
books class.
go. There you go.
Hey, fun fact: this podcast format was actually inspired originally by a podcast about books.
Wow.
Not a joke. Not
And then we turned it into the modern era video game.
Then we turned it into an anime podcast, and now it's a games podcast.
Right, exactly.
Modern era. Who are you, Sticks?
This is episode 30.
We're
We're at the big 3-0.
That's
for the
huge.
Halloween
That's
special.
like more numbers than I am years old.
I'll never get those hours of my life back.
Thanks, Ben.
You're welcome. I like to put things into perspective every once in a while, you know?
Yep. Just to get that nice universal perspective. All right.
Right.
As
exactly.
always, we got to start with an award. And this award
Do we
is the
always
Double
do
on
that?
Radio Gamescast Most Inappropriate Horror Protagonist.
Oh.
So this is of these things or people, what would be the worst horror protagonist? And this kind of applies to games
Wait.
and everything else as well.
When you say inappropriate,
Yeah.
what does that mean? Just
Like Duke Nukem?
It can mean whatever you take that word to mean, right?
So-
Just does not belong.
It could mean does not belong. It could mean just maybe they're just wildly inappropriate. I don't know. But
Okay.
whatever the reason, they're inappropriate horror protagonist. So first we got Tom Cruise.
He's
Okay,
terrifying.
I see where this is going.
All right.
Oh yeah.
So we got Tom Cruise. Next we got Build-A-Bear Workshop, the workshop. So the actual workshop. Not a Build-A-Bear, but the workshop. And then finally, we've got Brett.
Yeah!
I don't get the joke, so I'm gonna pick Build-A-Bear with Workshop. The workshop.
Okay, great.
I have one clarifying question to ask.
Okay.
Is this are we aiming for a horror movie experience to be the result of this? Or just the worst person in a horror movie scenario?
I would put it as like, what is of these? Which is the one you think would most be a disaster to watch on the level of something like The Room, right? That's what I take this to mean, which is why I obviously would vote for Brett.
I don't know, man.
No, think
I
about
you
it
do
this
a
way,
great
though.
job.
Okay, so
I
think
think
about it this way.
I think Brett would
Build-A-Bear Workshop.
do too good, and it wouldn't be funny
Think about this.
or
See,
scary.
Brett knows all the stereotyph for this stuff.
Exactly.
He'd be able to avoid so many things.
Five Nights at Freddy's Build-A-Bear Edition.
Absolutely.
Starring Tom Cruise.
But don't forget, this is the protagonist, right? So the
Right,
workshop
is
the protagonist.
Yeah, in Five Nights at Freddy Build-A-Bear Edition.
Okay.
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 So that is my choice still, because I
About Brett.
don't know. I don't know.
I mean, I think
That-
I would just be the most inappropriate because I would do such a bad job. Like I'm like not fun to watch, even like playing like horror games or anything, because I just like I just can't do anything.
You're not
Yeah,
fun to
that's
have
why
on
you're
a
on this list,
podcast with. You're not fun to play games with.
Aw.
It's all in the same vein. I just get too scared to start crying for all of those options.
Aw.
Damn.
All right, Wyatt.
You know I love you. As someone who willingly, for whatever reason, sat through The Mummy, the Tom Cruise version of The Mummy, I'm
Mhm.
somewhat willingly. I'll put it that way.
Right.
I'm gonna pick Tom Cruise because the thing about Tom Cruise is that he's very good at playing one specific type of character himself.
A Scientologist. Oh yeah.
He is very good
No.
at playing Tom Cruise Action Man. And if you put Tom Cruise Action Man in anything that isn't a Tom Cruise Action Man movie, it doesn't work, and he
Yeah, he
sucks.
was the best Tom Cruise ever in Edge of Tomorrow. He
Oh,
was
it
a
was
good
great.
Tom Cruise in that
But
one.
you put Tom Cruise, you take him and you put him in The Mummy, and it's one of the worst things I've ever seen. It's
Yeah, but
it's
can we talk about
pathetic.
Dwayne the Rock, the Crab Man?
Dwayne
That's-
the Rock.
Oh my god!
That is a-
Oh
that is a
my
different mummy,
god!
but
we
yes.
will,
Yes.
but we gotta get to Tessa's response.
Yeah, we're talking about video games, actually.
Are we talking about like what would be the worst?
It's
Like-
what you take it to mean. So my personal take is like what would create a room tier movie that is just painful, but at the same time has some worth.
So
called The
bad it's
Mummy.
good.
It's called The Mummy.
Oh my god. Brett all the way. He was too scared to play Dead Space.
Oh,
But
I
to be
win.
fair,
Oh.
Dead
I
did
Space
not
1 is
know.
actually terrifying.
Yeah,
It's
both
terrifying,
the
but he
first
was
two are
like-
terrifying.
I don't want to get through this.
What if the third
Kind
one?
of scared.
That's
Like,
Brett,
Isn't the,
I hope you're happy. You have won perhaps the most
Wow.
important award of your life.
I've
Give me a round
won
of applause.
The
something.
Double Radio Gamescast most inappropriate horror
your your
protagonist.
life has peaked at this very moment.
I feel
die
like you
happy
try
now.
so hard, but then you'd end up scaring yourself.
oh.
Yeah, you're right.
Good way to put it. All right, so now we can
Like
get into.
he'd scream. Oh, sorry.
No,
Just
go,
like,
go ahead, Tess.
The other person would scream, and then he'd scream and run away.
Yeah, he'd probably live, but he.
I would
imagine a
live,
scene-
but it would be very boring to watch.
I can imagine a scene in a horror movie where like it's two characters and they run into like the main villain. One of the characters looks to his right. It's just Brett's just taking off in the opposite
Yeah,
direction.
I'm just gone.
Every man for himself.
Yep. Be a great side character in a horror movie, but not the protagonist.
Yeah.
Oh,
And everyone would cry at his eventual death. Anyway.
Anyway,
Oh my
moving on, we're going to the actual topic of the episode, which is we're gonna do a nice little roundtable about different Halloween themed games. I keep saying horror games, that's because I think most of us played horror games, but
Yeah.
you can also just talk about Halloween themed games. Like if you really have a burning passion for medieval or something.
Or Costume Quest.
Costume Quest, yeah. That's along those lines as well. Speaking of which, if you go to the Epic Store, there's some great like Halloween free games for this week and last week. I think the next week has a set too. So you can get Layers of Fear and you can get I think Costume Quest right now, and both good games. We're also gonna do news at the end of the show and not now, because it's just we can do whatever we want. It's our podcast.
Good enough.
And this
And
is the
that's the
Halloween
scariest
episode,
thing of
and
all.
there really isn't much news. So we're moving
There's
Yeah.
a fly in here. It's gonna get in at my face. So,
So
if you
basically-
hear if you're clapping, that's me trying to kill a fly.
on. Wonderful. So basically,
Folks
what we're
with
gonna do
applause.
is go down the line and talk a little bit about our games that we played, and then afterwards we can talk about horror games in general, Halloween themed stuff in general. But first, we want to do a nice little everyone has their little 5 to 10 minute period to tell us about their game and what they thought. So Alex, you're at the top of the list.
Oh,
did you bring for us?
Okay. I brought
Don't talk. Don't.
I have plenty of other voices on stock. That's fine.
No.
Please don't been copyright
me.
It has been unleashed.
I played The Forest, which, oh wow, I bought it maybe a year or two back. I think looking for a good horror game experience, and I really didn't play much of it then because I was having trouble with the camera settings, which are still a bit of an issue now. But oh wow, don't try to rush through it for a review. It's wow. It
Wait, what game?
was the Forest.
Sorry.
So can I talk about how it starts off?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's the beginning.
Okay,
feel
yeah.
like
So
everybody
The stuff we avoid spoilers for this podcast is specifically things that are like more than a few hours in, so we're not taking experiences away from people.
Yeah.
so you and your son are in a plane crash, and you just happen to be a famous survivalist, which is very handy. So you're in a plane crash on this island, and it seems to be deserted, except for a bunch of cannibals, and also very sort of the way that I know how to describe this kind of is like Pepto Bismol monsters.
Yeah.
Very
It's a pretty
pink
good
and
description.
very pink and goopy that you find in the depths of caves, which oh, it's the scariest part, the caves, because I mean it's the game has one of my most hated mechanics in this sense. It has sort of a flashlight mechanic. It has the you hold up this lighter that really doesn't give you any light at all, except for maybe 3 inches around your hand, and that's all you can see. So it was an absolute heck of a time trying to find your way through these really vast cave systems, which I think when I was looking at the game, it said that they were randomly generated, which is a really good aspect for a horror game, keeping things unexpected and scary. But yeah, wow, the very bad lighting.
On purpose, probably,
Yeah.
Just it's a little.
but still.
And I know it's the survivalist sort of aesthetic there, but you can still. I feel like games can do better than the weak flashlight mechanic of holding up a single lighter.
Yeah, I think flashlight mechanics will certainly be
Well, I think
hopefully
you can get a flashlight,
less
right?
prevalent now.
Still,
It seems like they're becoming less common for a lot of horror games.
still scared my absolute pants off, especially in the caves, just because of the spooky Pepto Bismol atmosphere there.
It's the scariest part.
That's a sentence. I don't even know what else.
And the fact that you can make armor out of the bones of cannibals that you've killed, that's also
That's kind of awesome.
Yeah, it's fine.
whew.
That's a healthy thing to do.
And you just find burned bodies all over the place too, just in random spots. So apparently something happened, but I have no idea what.
It's just like in
Because,
real life.
Yeah, just all the time.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
get out of bed in the morning and something happened. I don't know what.
There's burned bodies everywhere.
Yeah,
This is
terrible.
normal.
So yeah, definitely a scary experience, but mess with the camera controls, and I hope you enjoy Pitch Black.
The Forest is a game that I've played a decent amount in multiplayer, and
There's
I don't
multiplayer?
know. Yeah, there's multiplayer.
Yeah.
It's
Oh.
actually like super fun, but like me and my friends gamify the crap out of it. So I don't know if
Yeah.
I got the same horror
It
experience
definitely
that you
takes the
did, because we
scariness
literally
away.
like bunny hop around, chop down like an entire forest, make a raft, sail out to the ocean, and like I don't know, hunt the megalodon. Like there's we don't play the game. We
What
don't
is
go
it,
into the
Sea of
caves.
Thieves?
We don't really do it. Like the horror aspect kind of just leaves once you get a group of guys together who abuse the mechanics.
Oh, also,
of the
yeah,
game.
you're searching for your son because he gets
Yeah.
taken away by someone during the plane crash.
After the plane crash.
But yeah,
Yeah.
Pretty weird if he was
Steals your
taken.
son.
During the
Your
plane crash.
crash.
Imagining some like Tom Cruise running up and grabbing his son
Yeah.
and parachuting out of the plane.
Worst
Oh
horror
my
movie
God.
protagonist. I'll show them.
Turns out he was the perfect antagonist.
Yeah. The award was just coming up later in the show. Tom, like
Absolutely.
relax.
Best horror game antagonist, Tom Cruise.
Yeah,
All right.
Someday.
Cruise.
Yeah,
come
I've
from.
played a decent amount of The Forest too, and I think I tend to, when I play that game, treat it more like a survival game than a horror game by
Yeah,
just
me
like
too.
not ever dealing with any of the horror elements because they spook me too much. Which I think
it's
means
good
the
and
game's
scary.
doing its job right.
I mean, true.
Because there are people that are super into that aspect of the game.
That's the thing, is I've actually never even considered that game to be a horror game until immediately right now. Like I've always thought it was just like survival with a bit of horror dashed
Yeah,
in. But I
it was
realized they're
originally
making a
billed
story.
pretty much as a horror game, and then it kind of
Th-
became more of a survival game. As
There's
development went
jump
on, I think.
scare and atmospheric horror in it. It's
Yeah,
it's
for
good.
real
It gets
though.
you.
Like,
Yeah.
Played it.
I don't know. It is, I would say, a very fun game if you're into survival
it's fun, yeah,
games.
for sure.
And if you're into like horror in that you lose your stuff when you die, like I would almost say like hard mode Minecraft horror.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
would just make me so mad.
Yeah, that's why I never get super into that kind of game, is because I
Rage
just
quit.
hate losing progress that way.
Yeah.
Because like games
I think
are it's hard to find time to play a lot of games. So when you can, and then
So,
suddenly the
yeah.
game like rips your progress away, I'm like, well,
Well, that's enough for that game. For a while.
yeah, it's more of an I'll stop playing at that point.
Yeah.
I did think
Um,
the inventory system was interesting. How you just
Yeah.
lay
Yeah,
out
I
a
like
tarp
it,
and there's
actually.
all your stuff.
That's been there for a while, and I think it's actually been one of the more unique parts of the game. That inventory system.
I love games
A bit
that have unique
clunky, though.
inventory stuff.
It's a bit clunky, especially for crafting. I find it's a tad clunky, but like once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad.
Yeah. All right.
And I guess it's not meant to be like super, high speed crafting.
Yeah,
But-
that's probably part of why it's that way. I would assume is because of that. They don't want it to be a like crafting focused game, or like speed crafting focused, like
Yeah.
some Minecraft runs turn into.
Mm.
Yeah. All right. Any other
Cake, any
words
percent.
on the forest? I almost said the Thorist.
The
The
Thorist.
thorax.
What do you
Thor's
have
coming
to
after
say
you.
about my
The
thorax?
Lorax.
The island is only populated by Thors.
That's the most terrifying thing of all.
Look, a Thor cannibal would get you. I would play Marvel's Avengers if that was the plotline.
They're a Halloween themed like event. It's just like zombie Thors.
It's
Yeah.
it's only Thor's.
All right.
I'd play that.
Just Thor everywhere.
That means it's now time to do the unexpected. And I said go down the list. I'm gonna go down the list, but swapping between people. So Ben, you gotta hold up. It's Tessa's turn.
Oh,
Thank God, I was
oh.
getting Thor talking about that.
Great. So it's great because no matter
Jeez.
what happens, I'm always going.
Wait, so wait, what game are you doing then?
I don't know. You want to just talk about them all?
Yeah,
I
if
can
you-
talk
if you
about Call of
played
Duty too.
a
'cause
bunch
they
of the
got a
similar
cool
stuff, you can
spooky
talk
event
about
going
too.
on.
Okay. Oh no, I have so many games I want to talk about.
Just
Pick your
start with
favorite.
one,
Okay.
and I'll talk about a different one if you.
Okay, I'll start with Alien Isolation then.
Oh,
Hell yeah.
It's a very good game.
I can't
so
play
good.
that one.
So
Wait, what did you say?
I said I
Brett
can't play
can't
that
play
one.
it
Why not?
that
I-
one is,
I could-
that one
because
is
it's
intense.
Brett.
It's viscerally terrifying.
To be fair, that one is very, very like nerve wracking.
Yeah.
It
The
is.
anxiety levels in that game are just through the roof.
I mean, it doesn't help when you're just vibing, you're walking around, then all of a sudden you hear footsteps
Mm.
coming
Yeah.
towards you,
Yeah.
you turn around, and there's an alien.
The sound design in that game
It's
is
so
on
good.
another level.
I think it's-
incredible.
I love the beginning where it's the explosion, and then the only things you can hear is when Ripley touches things.
Mhm.
Like that's all you hear, just
Ooh.
to
I
like
got that.
actually envision the fact that in space there's no sound except for the vibrations that
in
happen,
space.
like, when you
No one
touch
can hear
things.
you scream. That's the tagline for Alien.
Yeah. Is that
Yeah.
true?
Yeah, that's true. That was its original like tagline for the first movie.
Well, that's a good tagline.
Right?
Props to them. Props to them.
Right?
Props to the tagline writers.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that game is like nerve wracking from the start. Like it's just like the quick Samuels walks in and is like, "Hey, we might have found your mom," and then just like goes right into it, and then the whole explosion happens, and you lose everyone right at the beginning. And then everybody that you meet along the way ends up dying. So it's just like, it's just so nerve wracking because you finally have a sense of, oh my god, I'm not alone. There's someone here. Like some dude ends up finding you, so then you're with him for like a little bit, and then something happens, and then you're like, oh, I'm alone again. And then
I mean, that's classic horror as well. That's
Yes.
a super common thing in
Yeah.
a lot of games where
it makes you feel
false
so
sense of
calm.
security.
Yes, and well, I'm sure the androids are there for a false sense of security, but
Mhm.
I have automonophobia, so as soon as I saw the androids, I was like, I don't trust them. But I hate
That would be
mannequins.
my gut
Like-
reaction too. Is just like I don't know.
Well, their face is so like
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
because
off-putting.
but it's
I
cool
don't-
how they
I
put
don't
that into the
trust
lore
robots.
too. You know, like that whole thing, that whole section. You walk in and you're like, oh, these guys suck compared to the other androids that I know about in Alien, right? And then she's
Well,
like, oh,
but
no
but
wonder
the-
they're losing the tech race.
I mean,
you know?
it's scary
Like, that's
because
some
those
cool stuff.
androids are like programmed supposedly to not be hostile, but then they all of a sudden become hostile, and it's because this a great Apollo thing is like controlling them. But even though it seems like that's not in their programming, it is in their programming. But to them, they're not being hostile type thing.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh, that is freaky.
yeah. So
Putting it
like,
lightly.
well, it's a
the old
similar
workaround.
situation. I mean, I guess spoilers for Alien, but like
It's been out for like
it's been out
Like
since the
100 years,
70s.
okay?
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, like the first Alien, like that android was like probably one of the nicest people on the original crew, but then he ended
Yeah.
up basically wanting to kill them just so that he could get the specimen back alive. Like that's what always happens. Not always. That's what is very common for
yeah, it's
androids
just in the programming.
Especially in
in, like,
horror.
this
That's
world.
like
I feel like
common
androids
trope
in a
for them.
lot of sci-fi have the tendency to just be like, "Oop, that thing you thought was that like preventing me from murdering people. Guess what? I didn't want it to be there anymore." Ha.
Except
Like-
the robots in Interstellar. Those
I was
guys
about
are
to
just the
say.
best.
Yeah.
Those guys are
Big
the
Those
best.
fluffy
guys
friends.
are the best. Can we get a game about them? Journey, but with
Please.
Blockman.
I'd
where we
so
walk
play
around.
that.
I'd love to play as them just to see that rolling.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That was a really cool animation. Like that was just like,
That was all practical,
well, it was
which
a
is
really cool
Really?
way to
which
make
is
them
crazy.
to
Well, I think
locomote them.
I think a lot of the shots utilizing the robots were practical, which is pretty surprising.
Actually, yeah, I think they built like a giant robot that moved like that when you pulled it.
it was something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was cool.
This is now an Interstellar podcast.
Oh, good movie.
We've moved past Star Wars. We've moved past anime.
We've reached interstellar.
This is
levels.
it.
Look, we've never moved past Star Wars. It's always hanging at the back of our
It
minds.
always comes back, just
As
like
long as it's a
Halo.
sci-fi topic, it's going to be
Yeah.
part of the
That
podcast.
little maneuver of yours just cost us 51 years.
You had more, don't you, Tess?
Yes, I was letting everyone talk.
well, I did.
Everyone got excited.
I know,
so
but I
like,
was
Oh,
I was
no,
making a
I-
smooth transition back to
That
you
was the
after everyone had
transition, yeah.
concluded their thoughts.
Well, there was one thing I wanted to mention before we move on from Alien, because that series to me, like especially the first two movies, hold a special place in my heart because Alien was the first horror movie I ever saw.
Aw.
Mm.
So it's like one of
Aw.
my favorite movies ever, and I love that world. I love that aesthetic. I love those characters,
I don't remember
like-
my first horror movie.
and like the best. Well, that's
Yeah.
how much it scared me as a kid. Is
I
'cause
think mine was
I'm
definitely
never gonna
Jaws.
forget it. But like
My-
that was like my favorite part of Isolation was just that they got that atmosphere
Yeah, they
and that
nailed it.
like that like 70s future look and like the film grain and everything perfectly. Like
really
that
did.
atmosphere was like 15 out of 10. So well done. From a
that-
strategy game company. Like these are the same
That's-
people that make Total War, and they made a great like horror game on their first try, which is insane.
Yeah.
First
That's-
horror movie was
blows
Little
my mind.
Vampire.
That's like half of what
Was
makes
what?
That,
Little Vampire.
Oh, that movie. Oh, I haven't seen the movie in years.
And it nearly scared the literal pee out of me.
No.
That's
know what?
adorable.
Then I watched Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, and I was fine with those.
I mean, this is slasher horror. I feel like that's a very different type.
slasher,
Yeah.
totally different.
Those are like trashy.
B movies most of the time.
Yeah.
but you consider them to be.
It's more just like
well,
entertainment rather than trying to
Yeah.
actually be really scared.
well, I would say that the first like Nightmare on Elm Street legitimately has some like scary moments to it. It gets really campy in that whole series, but like that first movie took itself more seriously and had
Wait,
some like
so
legitimately.
when you say campy, do you mean the one where they go to space, or?
Well, that's how. Well, that's
no,
that's
Jason
Friday the
X.
13th. That's Jason X. But like,
no, Jason takes
But
New
there's
York.
there's Jason versus Freddy versus Jason where they go to space. Isn't
no,
there?
that's just Freddy versus Jason. There's Jason that goes to space, which is Jason X. He also goes to hell, I guess, at one point. I know too much about horror movies, so just don't.
no.
but-
There's one called. Oh, so Jason X
Jason X, he goes to
is
space.
Freddy versus Jason in space.
No, it's not.
No, Freddy's not
It is
there.
just a Jason movie.
It's just a
Oh.
bad Jason movie.
And then there's Freddy versus Jason, which is just like
Yeah.
regular normal.
I heard such awful things about that.
All right.
Anyway, we're getting
Sorry, I got us off topic.
So we got carried away in the Jason and Freddy lore.
I know a
The
little too
deep
much
Jason
about
Freddy
it.
lore.
Yeah.
All right, Tess.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just like. There's another. I just like horror movies that you can't. Horror games where you just have that feeling of helplessness.
Mhm.
Because, like, yeah, you have the flamethrower and you can use.
There's a shotgun too, isn't there?
Yep,
Yeah.
that's literally. That doesn't help you against an
doesn't.
alien.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but like you. Oh my god, what are those things called? The bottles that light on fire. Molotovs.
Molotov.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was the alcohol. The
Ex-
alcohol that you throw.
explodey bottles.
The
So
alcohol.
fire
Bottles that go boom.
Yes. So yeah, like that's all you have against the alien, and that's just for like a minute. Like it gets the alien to go away for like a minute, where you have enough time to go and like grab what you need and go. So I feel like that's just terrifying to me because you never know when that alien's gonna pop up. Like it disappears and you're like, okay, I heard it going into the vent, so that's like your chance to go. But then as soon as you hear it come back, you're like, well,
Yeah.
But
it does a
even
really good
with-
job of making it so you don't feel safe ever. Like
Oh,
even
yeah,
the fact
no.
that your safe space, quote unquote, is another vent.
even the humans
Like-
are hostile
Yep.
in that game.
Yeah.
So you're not safe from like anyone because all the humans are like
Why are the humans
survival of the
hostile?
fittest.
Because they're just kind of.
Well, I mean, because they're in space and part of the
That's just
ship
often
that
what
they're on
Alien is
exploded.
like.
Yeah.
Well, are they like Wayland Yutani people? Because it's like that's usually what
No,
it is
so-
for Alien. Is that it's like because I don't remember.
No, Tess can explain it.
They're just like random people that were on the ship, but like people are fighting over resources and stuff like that because there's only a limited amount of resources on the ship, obviously, and there's a big ass alien. So there's also that. So it's just kind of like fighting for supplies and
It's every man for himself at that.
Yeah.
yeah. Because I mean, how like I know how else something like that would play out when it's basically you're trying to survive, not getting killed by this alien, and waiting and hoping that help will come.
Right.
So it makes sense that you'd be fighting with other people for resources and
Yeah,
Well,
especially I think in
the-
the sci-fi worlds that Alien sets up. That's a very natural
Yeah, it's kind of like a.
setup.
What's what kind of aesthetic would you give? Have you seen The Expanse at all? I feel like
I keep
have.
meaning
I
to.
don't know.
it's
if
got that dirty,
anyone else
grungy, same like. Yeah, we might have colonized space, but we still hate poor people kind of feel.
has. Yeah.
Like it's that kind of commentary that it's pushing with that.
Sure.
Yeah.
But going back to like the game makes you feel really really helpless, and what I think is really interesting about that is that there's a lot of other like first person horror games like Amnesia or Outlast or something where you have
don't even
no.
get me started.
No, I'm not. But I just use it as an example. Calm down.
I get excited. I'm sorry.
I know it's okay. But what's so interesting about Alien Isolation is that like, yeah, we're gonna give you some things, but it lures you to this false sense of security where it's like those weapons aren't going to like they'll kind of like piss off the xenomorph and he'll run away, but like he's
Even
he's
the
going to be
androids
back.
are scary.
And the androids are scary, but like in something like Outlast, it's like 100% you have no like defense whatsoever.
The
You have a
androids
camera.
take like 10 bullets. Like die already.
But what I'm getting to is what I love about Aliens. Even though you have these weapons, you're still completely helpless, and I feel like giving you weapons makes you feel even more like
Yeah, I was just about
helpless,
to
which is interesting.
Yeah.
say exactly that. It's like the fact, like in Outlast or in like the first Amnesia, you don't have anything, so your brain's kind of like, okay, well, if I had a gun, this would be easy. So you kind of think about that, but Alien's just like, okay, you have your gun, you have your flamethrower, you have your grenades, your bombs.
Still
all
ain't
these
You don't
things,
have
and
a
you
damn-
still
you don't-
can't do a damn thing.
You have a flamethrower and a shotgun, and you still can't kill it. In video
Yeah.
game rules and first-person shooter rules, that makes no sense.
In first-person shooter rules, that
And those
means
are
whatever
power
you're fighting
weapons.
is supposed to kill you. It's-
Yeah. I mean, you go in Halo 3 armed with the flamethrower and the shotgun, you're
exactly.
unstoppable. Here, it's like, screw that.
It is so cool. The atmosphere of that game, just every little decision. Like if you think about it, like the fact that they make you crawl in vents to
Or
be
hold
safe,
your breath
or hold
when
your
you're
breath.
when
Like
you're when you're
I'm just
hiding.
saying, like they, in order to be safe, you're
Not
going into
even,
the
you
place
feel
where
safe
the
in
alien
those
gets
vents,
you from,
and then the alien can climb into the vent.
Yeah, the alien's like
Ugh.
is preying on you from the vents in the ceiling, and then you're going to hide in a vent. So it's like this is where you're in his place. You know, you're in the.
That was
alien's
like one of the
zone.
scariest things for me when I was like, I'm safe, and then I heard the alien climb in, and I was like, are you kidding
Never
me? I
mind.
can't have
It's
any
not a-
space.
It's not a horror game, but another game that had a really similar kind of setup to that. I don't know if anyone here has played Metro Exodus, but there's a section in one of the areas where you're crawling around like this vent, and there's tons of like little gross crab-looking monsters that come like attacking you. And in that game, if you want a flashlight, you either have to have like a flashlight that you have to pump up to recharge, or you have a little like lighter. And so you're holding up a lighter while also holding a gun at the same time, and you're just walking through the vent, and it's a very similar kind of like
I
experience.
didn't
which was
play
really cool.
Exodus. I did play Last Light. But there's
Mhm.
definitely some really tense moments in those games.
They're
Yeah.
almost horror, yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're
Definitely.
shooters, but the
Yeah.
gunplay is clunky and the monsters are scary, so it's getting there.
And you have
Yeah.
like no ammo.
Yeah, and you have like no ammo. It's
Although Exodus has crafting, which is weird.
yeah. Exodus seems to be a little bit less of the same. From that's a whole different conversation. though.
Anyway.
We're not going to get into the differences between Metro Exodus and Last Light
right,
because we could go on for days about that.
definitely.
All right. Anything else, Tess?
Just for that game. Not. Okay, I'll let someone else speak. Well, I was gonna say something about the end and how much I love the game for the ending, but I don't want to.
Can't do that.
But just leave it
Yeah,
there.
do it.
Leave it. The
Yeah.
ending's great.
Well,
Cutter Mike.
I wouldn't say great.
Sorry, that's all
I
the time
know.
we
I
have.
know. I'm.
No, like I wouldn't say it was great, but
It
like
makes the game good.
it makes the game good, and it leaves you like
Being kind of like
Makes you think.
you're like,
Huh.
oh
kind
Bruh.
of like that, or maybe
Bruh.
it's more like there's a couple.
yeah, it's like, oh, all right, I guess.
Okay,
Is it or is it bruh?
that's my
Yeah,
favorite emotion.
yeah,
to have
it's
at
like
the end of a
it's
video
like,
game.
bruh, what the fuck, you
Right.
know? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like I like games where you don't expect the ending.
Mhm.
Like it's completely different than from
Yeah.
what you would have.
It's a
thought.
spicy twist.
All right.
All right, fantastic,
That means we're bouncing around. It's been.
cool. So Tess left me the game that I actually have been watching her play to talk about. So I didn't play the game, but I watched Tess play it. Amnesia, the new one. We've been playing.
Oh,
Yeah. I also watched Tess play. it.
She
It was a lot
hasn't
of
finished.
fun.
We haven't finished it yet. So
Taking it away from me.
What? You just talked about Alien.
Well, you can also talk
What
about
am I
it.
supposed- Yeah,
Yeah,
I just wanted to
this is
bounce the
probably
topics
gonna
around
be
because I know
you.
Ben.
And then I also wanted to talk about, since I don't play horror games a lot, I could just shoot in the fact that the new Call of Duty like Warzone mode is actually really good, and we could chat on that.
Oh,
for
the
a few
zombie
minutes.
Halloween.
mode?
Yeah, the zombie mode is so much fun. But let's
I
talk about
haven't-
Amnesia first,
Yeah.
and then we can chat about that quickly.
Oh, if there's
just
a
'cause
zombie
it's-
mode in Warzone, I might actually be into that.
it's very fun. Anyway, Amnesia seems like a pretty good deserving sequel, I think, of the first one. I don't know.
Better than a machine.
That's not what I've
Yeah.
been hearing, which is
Really?
interesting. Yeah.
That's-
now I
that's
haven't played an
interesting.
Amnesia game before, so I can't really comment.
It's
but
definitely not. It's not quite. I don't think the caliber of the first one, but I think it does.
Yeah,
I
I think it's a situation where like the first one revolutionized horror at the time it came out
and
for
the
games,
second one's just not going to do.
and the second one like
because
can't do that at this point. So I think
I feel like if they released Amnesia
Yeah.
today, people would be like, "Oh, well, that was kind of all right."
Yeah.
yeah,
You
I
know,
totally
like
get
I don't
that.
think the first game was great, but it was more important because
It also came out
was
in like
so-
2011.
Yeah, it was
Right.
more important because it was so like revolutionary for the genre of horror games, not because it was necessarily the a masterpiece.
Yeah,
of the
it's
video
like
game,
things
though it
that
was good.
Amnesia did are now horror staples, like the pulling
Right,
doors
exactly.
open and all the
Yeah.
stuff that Amnesia originally did are kind of sticking around because of that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's the example of like it's not cliche because it created the cliche.
I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah, I mean it's
Playing
definitely
it.
not a bad horror game.
I mean, it definitely really connects to the first one, definitely, because there's so many notes left behind, and it mentions Alexander multiple times. So I think that's pretty good. It mentions the orb. It's just tying up
Loose ends.
the world, the other world that you hear about in the first one, but you don't really have any information on it. Because you're just like hearing about this world and you're like, what is this? Like, why are people trying so desperately to get to it? And I just like the way that this one is kind of expanding more on that. Because, I mean, you're still, even when you finish the Amnesia game, you're still left in the dark of like what it is. So I just like that. The monster is terrifying. I will give that to them. It's literally one of the ugliest things I've ever seen. And it's so scary. And he has yeeted me across the room like 5 times already.
It-
You try to hide,
Yeah,
and he
you-
just lifts you up and throws you. And meanwhile, oh wait, no, that's a big spoiler. Never mind.
Good catch, good catch.
Termite!
I was like, whoa, this game just came out. Let me not.
I mean, from what I saw of both you and other people playing it, it seems like the general consensus is that it's very much a competent horror game, at least so far.
Yeah,
And it'll probably take a little bit of time to see like if it's on the
There was
caliber
definitely-
of the original or not.
yeah.
I mean, I can definitely tell. Like, when I play it, I'm like, yeah, this is definitely an Amnesia game. But it's still like, very, very different.
From a narrative standpoint, I think it's already kind of lost a few points with me just because in the beginning there's just like infinite flashbacks in the beginning of the game.
Yeah, I
Like
did
it's
notice
just trying
that.
to like fill you with all this exposition as fast as possible through flashbacks before the game
Yeah.
starts.
It also feels like, at least from my point of view, like I really don't remember much of the actual lore from the first one. So just like watching other people play it, like I have no idea what's going on half the time because I feel like it really relies.
You
on-
definitely
it
have to
does.
know your Amnesia lore.
Yeah,
It
Which
definitely
is-
relies very heavily on the
yeah, it
first
puts a
game.
damper on it. But
It is unfortunate since this came out so long ago.
I
Like,
know.
I was about
Yeah.
to say I feel like that makes it worse. you
that
know?
said, it
Well,
is a very
it'd totally
short
be
game.
super forgivable if Amnesia had been more recent.
Oh
mean,
no,
yeah.
I agree.
Amnesia's not a very long game though, like so I feel like it's pretty easy to go back and just speed through it and
Or
and
watch
get the story or watch
Someone
somebody
play it,
it.
Markiplier.
Yeah.
King of Amnesia.
Hmm.
I thought he wasn't gonna play it, and I got so excited. And then I got so upset. And then I got
I'm
a
so
notifica-
excited.
then I got
Oh God, Markiplier
then I
can't
got
touch
a
this one.
notification that said "Baby, I'm back," and I was like, I know what this is. But so far, he's only put out part 1, and that was 2 days ago, and I'm getting kind of angry. Because, like, what are you doing in your spare time, Markiplier? Nothing.
Hey,
Playing
it's
video
a
games so
business.
lazy.
You know, you got to make sure you don't overload.
Right.
Time your releases. That's why we don't do 10 podcasts in a week.
We could.
I don't
Poor
think
man,
we
you see
could.
how he reacts when he plays those rage games like Pogo Stuck. My God.
I mainly watch Markiplier's horror series, but I'm watching all of his games. All of the games he plays. I'm only in 2013, but
So
I love him.
yeah.
Yeah, Markiplier is the best horror
This is a
game.
this
I
is a
mean,
That's
Markiplier
what-
podcast now.
He is the king of Amnesia. He has played obviously he's played like Dark Descent, Justine, and A Machine for Pigs, and now he's playing Rebirth, but he's played like so many of the custom stories. More than I have seen any other YouTuber. Like, he was into Amnesia, and that is the king of Amnesia. No one can tell me otherwise. Someone tried saying it was Booty Pie, and I was like, listen. No. I mean,
I
he
think
has.
for PewDiePie, it's more the other way around. Of like PewDiePie got popular at the start because of reactions to Amnesia.
Yeah, I mean, PewDiePie did play some of the more. He played like the more popular custom stories. I think he may played like a couple, but Markiplier like literally played so many of them. So that's
Yeah.
the king.
All right,
Okay,
Ben.
cool. So
COD
now I'm just
time?
gonna a little bit of Call of Duty because I've been playing a lot of Call of Duty.
I have
Who
too.
who said that they hadn't tried it yet?
Me.
I haven't.
I haven't
Yeah,
played
I haven't
Warzone
done
for
the
Digital.
zombie
I don't
mode, but
play COD
I
games.
have played a bit of Warzone where they have that cute little
nighttime?
jump scare
Oh,
thing that they got going
I
on.
haven't
Have you-
even gotten the jump scare yet. But
Okay, so to explain,
you open
If
the
you-
box and then something goes.
if you open a loot, if you open one of like the crates that has like gear and stuff, occasionally you'll just get like a scary face for a second. There's like a loud like noise, and I had no idea that was happening. So I was playing it, and it legitimately made me jump. It got me. It's
Oh.
cheap as heck.
Just makes me
so
want to play
cheap.
even less.
It's so cheap, but it was kind of
So,
cute.
do you know the mechanics of the new zombie mode at all?
Roughly. So
Roughly. So so it's regular Warzone basically until you die, and then instead of going to the gulag, you come back as a zombie, but you land like
Oh.
right back in where your team is. So you can
Oh.
kind of like play with your team as a zombie, and the zombies have like some abilities. They have like a smoke grenade or like a poison gas grenade, like an EMP. I don't even know what the EMP does. It's not important. And they have like this really no, seriously, because who cares? Because you have a jump where you can jump like 200 meters.
Oh,
Like you fly, and you make the coolest noise, and you have this awesome like blue vapor trail behind you, and like
it makes me
sick.
wish
In
that
the
was
final
just
circle-
the battle royale mode, like period. To be honest with you.
yeah. Anyway, so as a zombie, you try to run around and pick up when a player dies, you can get a little stim or whatever, and you get 2 stims and you get to come back. So that's like the new gulag system, which is cool.
get to come back as a human?
Yeah, you come back as a human. You get
cool.
two stims as a zombie, and you
Huh.
get to come back as a human. So instead of going to the gulag like usual, that's what happens.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool because you can get your own thing, and then you only need one more. And what it kind of does is like it makes it so if your team wins a fight, your whole team's coming back. So it makes it really intense, like so much fighting, constant fighting, and the circle starts half the size.
And
That's why it's so
and like
much fun,
I'm not a
because it's
fan
just
of
constant fighting. It's awesome.
I'm not a fan of battle royales, but what I do like about Warzone is that it gives you so many opportunities to come back. It's not like you're
Yeah.
dead
exactly.
and that's it. That's something I've always appreciated about it. And even with these special events, they're trying to keep you in the game more often.
Yeah.
So you don't just die.
That's kind of really, as much as it's like a zombie themed thing, the whole point of it to me seems like get you back in the game, keep you playing for as much time as possible.
Yeah,
Nice.
I kind of wish that like that was how the mode worked regularly, because I think that's such a cool like idea.
Oh,
You
and the
know?
zombies drop like a crap load of loot, so you by the time you kill like a couple zombies, you have like $20,000. You can buy your team back as much as you want, basically. And you can get as many loadout. Like, yeah, it's really just about just upping the tempo of Warzone, which I think is so much fun. That's like the best event that they've had in a while. But other than that, it's Call of Duty's Call of Duty. But that event's really cool, and if you have Warzone, you should play it.
It makes me want like a full-fledged like zombie
Makes me
themed
sad
battle
that's going to
royale.
be
To
gone.
be honest with you.
Wait,
or
it's
whatever.
just an event? Oh.
Yeah,
It's
just
a
for
Halloween event. Yeah, they have some of their best modes for this Halloween event. Like
Seriously,
the
that's what I'm saying.
The
Like,
Onslaughter mode is great, and it's not going to stay around, and that makes me
And
really sad.
the Spooky Royale is like almost more fun than regular Warzone. Like,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
They did they did a good job. Definitely.
yeah. Props to them, definitely. It's a shame it's going away.
I hate timed events like that.
Yeah.
Just keep it around. It's. Just
I'm sure
keep
they'll bring
Like,
it
what's the-
back. I mean, people love it.
I mean,
Will they, though?
there are
They
legitimate
won't, though.
reasons for timed events, and that you will kind of like split your player base unevenly, pretty heavily past a certain point. And it does make those events more fun when you know that when you're playing it, and it's going to be like an exclusive thing for a little while. So I like the Monster Hunter approach, or like Monster Hunter has timed events, but they always come back at specific times during the year.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
and I get that, but like have it multiple times a year, not just one time a year. Like have it in
make
more
a summer Halloween.
Yeah.
So I have Spooky July.
Everyone
Well,
wants more
no,
than one
there's already
Halloween.
Christmas in July, so that doesn't work.
Oh, August. Spooky August. Because school's coming back.
No, that's
Well, are you gonna play
October, though.
this? Are you gonna play this for Halloween, or are you gonna play Dr. Junkenstein for the 15,000th time?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
All right, we're
Now-
getting very far from the original focus of
That's
this
true.
one.
Who's next? Who's
Uh,
next on
well,
the docket?
Who's next on the docket? We do the flip. Back to me.
Whoa!
So
oh my!
That's
I've
a
got.
Oh my god.
Whoa.
Oh no.
Wyatt, this would have been your position had you not changed your name in the Discord.
But I had to. But Ryan, you can understand why I had to.
Yeah.
I understand.
you did have
All
to.
right. So I played 2, kind of 3 horror games. The one that I
Wow.
played that's like the easiest to get out of the way is Zombies Ate My Neighbors, which is a SNES horror. It's really not a horror game. It's a very simple arcade game that Konami made, and it's pretty fun. It's like a zombie SNES game. It's cool. It's a cool thing though, because there are moments in that game where you realize they have enemy designs of like these chainsaw people that will just run straight at you.
Okay.
And it is more terrifying than most games I've ever played, because you know there is nothing you can do. Because
Oh,
the normal
God.
zombies are pushovers, but then these chainsaw lads just come straight for you, and you're like,
Death.
Time
yeah,
to die.
it's an interesting way to do that kind of like resource horror in a game like that.
SNES game had a resource horror?
Yeah, you have like limited resources, and there different things work with different enemies. It's a cool little game. Then I played Layers of Fear, which I think is a really interesting, like it's an Amnesia style horror game in that it plays pretty similarly. There's not really any enemies. It's not like a thing where you're worried because there's going to be like a jump scare or something.
Okay, yeah, I know what game you're talking about. I just have to look up pictures.
It's very good from what I played of it. And I'm like not a huge horror game person, but I was having a lot of fun with this. And
There are some really cool sequences.
Yeah.
That game made me laugh at one point.
I don't know if have you reached the part where you're at the like the record player or the like the music box section?
not yet. I played around 3 hours of it.
Do you not want me to say
So
anything?
far?
Because it's a segment that I really want to talk about, but I also don't want to spoil it for you.
I mean, how far into it is it? Is it something that's
Oh,
like
man.
gonna ruin it for people who are playing it?
You know what? I'm just not going to say anything because you just need to.
I'd
go
I'd
through
say
it
it's a
and
cool
watch it.
thing. All right.
If anyone knows what I'm talking about, it's one of the coolest segments in a horror game I've ever played. It's so cool.
But yeah, back to it. What I'm really enjoying about it is how like psychedelic it can get.
Mhm.
Like it's scary psychedelic in that it uses effects you would expect to see out of like a trippy music video, but they're happening around you as your character's like looking around. Suddenly things are just not where you remember them being. It's almost like Antechamber-esque in how it handles a lot of area transitions of you like turn around, close a door, reopen the door, and suddenly it's a different area.
That's crazy.
It's very good, and you kind of reveal the story over time of basically this artist struggling to make a work of art and kind of basically trying a bunch of crazy stuff. And like to a point very early on, you get a lot of like scary moments of just how to handle how would an artist whose mind is like breaking apart handle these situations of like they're kind of like creating their own horror essentially.
Mhm.
Which is why I love the fact that the game has no enemies. I think a lot of people won't like that and will say that like it's lacks substance because of that, but I think it also adds something unique to that game and it appeals to a different audience. Whereas like I'm not the kind of person who's a huge fan of Amnesia. I enjoy Amnesia, but it's not my jam. It's not like the style of game I go out to play that often. Like Alien Isolation is a great game. I absolutely loved playing it, but it's not something I'm going to go back and play. It's not a game that like if I want to play a game, I'm not going to think of that. Whereas Layers of Fear to me is just something that like I very much want to get to the end of it and experience just the ride.
One part made me laugh because like you're walking down a hallway and then this kid comes over. He like just like runs across the thing and falls. And starts crying.
I think I know the part you're talking about. Yeah, that got me. there are bits of it where it's almost like intentionally
is so
playing with the
mean,
tone
but,
of the
like,
game.
I feel like sometimes horror things will just input something that is like so ridiculous that they really thought would be scary, but it's just comical.
Oh,
I think in that case they probably
definitely.
knew it was going to be comical. That felt very funny to me, and maybe we're just maybe they didn't want it to be that way, but I think that's what it felt like to me.
It made me laugh. That's
Yeah.
the one part that I really remember.
I remember the, and I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. I was just zoning out for a little bit, so we might have already talked about this. But I remember one section that made me laugh was like the little girl that was running around.
Yes.
Seems like more of a comedy than a horror game. At this
No,
Well,
point,
that's
yeah.
us
laughing.
focusing
It was
on
such a-
the bits like that.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, there's some really cool stuff with painting. It's an interesting game.
Mhm.
I
Even
think
the
it's
art-
certainly not
the
as like
art in the game is
revolutionary as Amnesia or anything like that.
The art in the game is the game looks really cool.
Yeah, it makes Unity look really, really good, which
Ooh.
it can be hard to do. As I think anyone who's used Unity will know. Unity tends to be a little less friendly to art than Unreal.
Unity
but-
has not been nice to me this week,
It's,
so don't even mention the name right now.
It's always nice to see artists turning to the occult. I
Yeah.
say in my profession.
Look, that's what they must have done for Layers of Fear, is turn to the occult to get it to look that good.
It's the only way.
Yeah, and then I did play one other game that is more along the lines of The Forest. I played 7 Days to Die.
Oh,
Quite
my
a decent
lord,
amount.
No way.
7 Days to Die
Okay.
is
that game
for
real?
context, a game that I think launched in early access in 2013 and is still in early access. So it's one of those
Ooh.
early access development hell games. Except
It's more
it's
than
actually
7
getting
days.
developed. Like there's consistent updates and
It's
they're
still,
clearly
like-
working on a lot, but it's bonkers to me that the game has been in development this long.
I mean, Tarkov has been in development for probably that long.
Yeah, but
There are games that do it.
I think 7 Days to Die is at this point a very good survival game.
Really.
Yeah, I was having a lot of fun with it. It's got some really great bits of like resource management and RPG progression, and that it really encourages you to like have character builds and everything. It goes pretty hard into survival RPG now. And the structure of like you essentially have 7 days to prepare for this horde that will always know where you are regardless of what you do is a really interesting way to handle it. And it means you've got this like constant timer in the back of your head, like I need to be prepared for this event, because zombies in that game really aren't that much of a threat normally until they suddenly all know where you are at once.
Oh, that's fantastic. I hate it.
It's a really cool game, and I think the bits that I like are really just the resource management, and it plays a lot with a lot of like crafting mechanisms of like Minecraft style stuff in a way that's a little bit less blocky. Especially now, like the environments in 7 Days to Die are pretty good, and especially the like amount of variation in different places is really cool. Like you'll find abandoned cities that are just generated with different shops and whatnot. Like if you might go raid a superstore to get food and then do a bunch of other stuff. It's a very interesting zombie survival game, and I think it's one of the better representations of, or not representations, but better games that nails the sense of like surviving in a post-apocalypse. Whereas things like State of Decay are still a little bit arcadey and like very gamey. 7 Days to Die is still very gamey, but it's also really good that sense of like you need to go to certain places to find food and budget your time very correctly. It's a very good game. All right.
Yeah, that big horde zombie thing is something that I've been wanting a game to nail for so long, and so far, according to you, 7 Days to Die is one of them, and
Yeah.
Project Zomboid is also one that's been pretty good at that.
Yeah, I think my three big like horde
But-
zombie games that get hordes right are 7 Days to Die, Zomboid, and Days Gone.
I've never.
I haven't played Days Gone,
7 Days
so-
to Die, but I've watched.
Yeah, Days Gone is
Like,
very
I
very
play
good.
it, and
Now.
it looks pretty interesting.
All right, that's mine. Which means Brett.
Oh, we forgot World War Z. That game also does some fun zombie horde.
I have not played
Sorry,
enough of it.
Oh.
I forgot that game existed.
It's so fun. I got it for like super cheap on like the Epic Game Store a while ago. Anyway,
Yeah. All right.
So
Brett,
yeah,
it's your
moving
turn.
on. Brett.
I played a game that I personally have a lot of history with, and is one of my most favorite like and unique settings of all time. Five Nights at Freddy's. No, Dead Space 2. So for to start off, I specifically wanted to play this one because it scared the absolute bejesus out of me when I first played it in middle school. My friend was like, "Hey, I don't play this game, but the guy on it looks like Master Chief. So do you want it?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, sick, bro." And then I played it, and there's a part that made me cry as a kid, and I put it down, and I never played it ever again until like yesterday. I sat down and just played like the first half of the game, which is not that much because it's like a 10-hour game. But it's so good, and it's so scary, and then like I don't it really kills me that the series is dead now because man, they just do so many things right. Like
The UI.
the UI, everything. Like it literally the series started because the creative director was like, I want to make Resident Evil 4 in space. And then they did. And it became like so much more unique than that. And it kind of has that thing that we were talking before about like, yeah, you have guns, but it's like, okay, I get it. I'm supposed to turn the funny plasma cutter to the other side so that it chops off the arms that are in this direction so that they don't stab me. I'll do it. And then you shoot it, and then their arm doesn't come off on the first shot, and it's like, die, 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 die. And then they start running at you, and their arms are flailing all over the place, and you can't hit them for garbage. And it's terrifying. And the part that specifically got me as a kid, and even playing it now, I was like, yeah, I can. I can show a few people this now that they will just start freaking out and screaming. There's the enemies are necromorphs, and there's like a bunch of different kinds of them. Um, they're all based off of car crash victims, by the way, which is disgusting and
Oh,
terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a bunch of bones and
what?
sticking out. Yeah, it's
Oh God.
absolutely horrifying. There's a variety of them called stalkers, and they introduce them to you, but they make you walk through a very big dark room with like three big pillars in the middle. And this is way before the halfway point of the game, so it's not like spoilery. Um, and you get to the end of it, and the door you're supposed to get through like breaks or something, and then the lady on the comms is like, "Okay, I'm gonna get you out, but you just gotta, I gotta figure out how to open the door first. We're also running from things." And Isaac's like, "Okay, I guess." And then you have to go back in the room and listen. I flashlight mechanics are scary, so I'm glad that they exist. And to be honest, I kind of hope they stay there because you could only have your flashlight out when you're aiming in Dead Space 2, so you have to
Huh.
slowly walk back through the room that you just walked through, and there's like screams just coming from like different corners of the room, and it's completely pitch black. And then you get to the other side and you turn around, and there's just a little white chicken head peeking out at you from beyond one of the columns. And
Chicken
then
head?
you shoot at it and it goes away, and then another one comes out and starts screaming at you like a baby and running at you as fast as possible, and you can't kill it fast enough before it gets to you.
Oh
And then there's
God.
another room. The room that really got me as a kid was there was like 20 of them, and like I had trouble like getting through it, not because it was like scary, but because I literally did not have enough ammo to kill them all. So I was like, yeah, this makes sense. I'm no longer making fun of my past self for being upset at that. That was terrible, in a good way. Uh, yeah, it's a very good game, very scary, and I will finish it probably after this podcast at some point.
Yeah, man, I love Dead Space. It's such a unique series.
I
Very
We,
know.
we haven't got any kind of horror that uses that same gameplay loop. I mean, maybe Evil Within kind of counts, but
Yeah.
still, I don't know. It's a genre I really miss because those are the horror games that I tend to like a lot more. Are that approach to horror as opposed to the like jump scare approach?
Yeah. And even the jump scares that are there, it's like some things just like come out of
They serve a
nowhere
purpose.
because yeah, they serve a purpose because Isaac in that game is like going crazy, and he's dealing with like the game starts with like uh congratulating like his girlfriend is like congratulating, oh, I'm so glad you got me to do this job, and it's the job that got her killed. And so the
Oh,
whole game is he's just like beating himself up about it and seeing like visions of her being all freaky, and so that's what those play into, and it like it gives them substance.
Yeah,
It's not just like
absolutely.
some face coming out of nowhere.
I always
Also,
really loved the UI because I haven't played the second one, but I remember a lot about the first one, and I just loved the way that they handled UI in that game because it was
Yeah.
kind of before. Because I know like the Batman games kind of have a similar thing where they have like the screen in front of you that's like in a 3D space. And
Dead
they
Space
have
did
the-
it more than
more definitely.
Batman, yeah.
But also they have like the gauge on your back, which is like that's your health, isn't it? Where it's like it's
yeah,
all diegetic, which is so cool.
I used to have that on a T-shirt, man. It felt so awesome.
Yeah, that gauge is one of my favorite
Was.
things.
You know what's crazy too? My first Dead Space game wasn't any of the main ones. It was the mobile game.
What
It
is
was
that, like
a-
Extraction or something?
It was like a full on Dead Space game, like a single player, like 3D third person horror type of thing. And they did such a good job at translating the controls because
Really?
it was like basic touchscreen like shooter controls, but they didn't feel that horrible to me. And what the great gimmick was like when you wanted to change the angle of your cutter, right? You had to basically like tilt your phone,
Oh, that's
Oh.
interesting.
which
Ooh.
was
That's
so cool. It was such a cool way of because like again you had to wasn't just in any old direction. You had to like torque it in the direction that you wanted. So it's like if you wanted it vertically, you had to go left, and if you wanted it horizontally, you had to go right. It was so cool.
That's sick.
And you can't play it anymore. It's
Yeah.
not on the App Store.
Oh no!
Rip.
Yep.
I'm getting
That's my
Infinity
like
Blade
biggest issue with
flashbacks.
iOS game preservation is it's just not really possible.
Yeah.
There's so
But it's
many
also
old
it's
iOS
an,
games that
it's
are
an
impossible to play
EA
now.
game. Like
Big
how
ones
do you
too, like
not
Infinity
have
Blade.
the budget?
The first two Infinity Blades are pretty much impossible to play.
Well, for a lot of different reasons. Now that's a whole complex.
Yeah, but the gist of it is that the hardware is now different, and there was never any release in a platform that supported the hardware that could play that. That's them.
But I mean
essentially.
that happens. Unfortunately.
Yeah, but usually there's a backup, right? Like usually there's something like emulation that can work.
Yeah.
Whereas with that, it's like those games are now just kind of lost.
Exactly. Especially the ones that you have to like tilt the phone for. Like there's nothing like even if someone were to make like a
Yeah.
rebuild of it, like people rebuilding PT from the ground up, since you can't play it on the PS4 anymore, like you can't do that with a mobile game on a computer or anything else. It's just impossible.
Yeah.
But on like the plasma cutter tilting thing that Wyatt brought up, like there's only one conventional gun that you can have, and even it like reloads weird and looks weird. Like it's just supposed to be an assault rifle, but then like you can just fire like 50 of the bullets out at once and like a huge
Oh.
grenade. And then there's one gun that's literally just it's just like a circular saw blade that you like you telekinesis push it out and it spins really fast, and the sound that it makes when it cuts those, I
Oh.
cannot use the words for them right now, but it is so satisfying to watch those jerks just become puddles of blood.
Can we also give a moment to commiserate what could have been Dead Space 4, which I was reading up on recently, and it was this really interesting concept where I don't remember if you play as if they were planning it as you playing as Isaac or not, but you have this like rundown like hunk of junk ship that you're trying to keep afloat, and what happens is you're trying to fly it through space to get somewhere, and you basically stop at different derelict ships to like grab supplies to upgrade your ship to make sure it doesn't fall apart, but they're also infested with necromorphs. And so you're going from ship to ship, scavenging parts and trying to keep your own ship afloat, which is such a cool.
It's a cool concept.
It's a cool like loop or a cool like structure for a game, and I really wish that it had gone through because I feel like that's perfect. Like Dead Space 3 obviously like did not missed the point on what Dead Space was, and that wasn't all the developers' fault.
Missed every point.
But that wasn't Visceral's fault. That was
It
a
was
lot
not.
of EA garbage. But
Yeah.
but that feels like a Dead Space. Like that feels like a game, like a structure that would fit within Dead Space. So
Yeah.
makes
'Cause
me
it's
really
just
sad.
It's the ultimate realization of survival horror. Like the whole thing is that you have to manage your resources, but then in that concept, like the whole environment has to have its resources managed because it's the ship and it's running out of like fuel or whatever.
And it also embraces the space horror aspect of it as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I really wish that came out because
Doesn't that sound awesome?
so far up my alley.
I know.
I love that kind of
know.
resource management and mission structure. That, man, it just makes me so sad.
Guess someone else will just have to make it and call it something different now.
Yeah. All right. I mean, you never know. It's still possible. It's just highly unlikely, and it probably would be a different game if we got a Dead Space
Yeah.
4. I doubt that would be the thing that we got.
That's yeah. That's the thing, because Wyatt and I were talking a little briefly before this, like, oh, I want Dead Space 4, and it's like I want a spiritual successor more than I want EA
Yeah.
to make another one because I don't want EA to make anything else ever again.
You need to buy each weapon separately.
That's you silly fool. That's Dead Space 3. Haha.
Oh no.
Yep, that's an actual thing. All right.
Yep.
No.
Before we
Oh,
go
no.
down that route, let's.
Yeah.
It is
Get my mind off of that now. Can't
Yeah,
go down that
fine.
rabbit hole.
Brett's all finished. Are you, Brett? Is that everything?
Yeah. Otherwise, I'm
Great.
just gonna gush for like 3 hours.
Wyatt, you did this to yourself. You're last now.
Yes.
I'm waiting to jump
Yes.
into Wyatt's.
So I replayed rather Until Dawn, which is probably one of my favorite games ever.
Same. So good.
I also think it's the best. So if you don't know what it is, it's very similar to something like Detroit Become Human, where it's very cinematic and your control in the game is somewhat limited, and it's more focused on like branching dialogue and choices and that kind of thing. And I think it's the best example of that because I think it's the kind of game where, unlike Telltale, they're not super concerned with like having it be in a franchise, so they don't have to. They can be more liberal with their endings and like how much things branch off. But I also think it's such a tight, well-written story with great characters.
Yeah,
And I
big
just
thing
think
to
it's
me is that it's a perfect length as well. It's not too
Yeah.
long.
Because
a
it's a
huge
game that
issue
you're
for some
supposed to
things.
replay so many times.
That's
And
one of my
so
issues
the
with a lot
fact
of
that it's-
Detroit is it just kind of meanders. Even though I love Detroit, there are parts in that game where it takes so long to get to the point.
Yeah, and there's a lot of cool, and part of the reason I think it's like the best example of this type of game as well is because it has so many cool like gimmicks or like little interesting controller moments. So there's moments where like you're supposed to stand completely still because you're like trying to hide from something, and you have to hold your PS4 controller still, and you have to hold it like the light bar within a certain area, and if you are successful, then like whoever's like trying to find you doesn't catch you. But if you shake the controller too much, then they find you because you were making too much noise. And it's this great like moment of like you feel like you're there trying to like not move on this. It's so well done. And it also is it has a lot of cabin in the woods kind of genre subversions. I feel like it's a lot more it's a lot more
I can see
subtle.
that.
It's a lot more subtle than Cabin in the Woods is. I love that movie, but it goes so insane, like overboard at the end, and that's what I love about it. But this one's much more subtle with those kind of like playing it at, especially like 80s slasher like tropes and stuff like that. And I think it's so well done.
I love Until Dawn. I
All the-
100%ed that game.
Yeah, and
Oh.
it's it's the type of structure that works perfect for a horror game because when you're watching a horror movie, in the back of everyone's mind, you're thinking who's going to come out alive at the end of this, like who's going to die and who's going to live.
And
what's
it's
great
all
about
your
Until
fault
Dawn,
if they die.
yes, what's great about Until Dawn is that the big gimmick is that like you basically decide who gets out by the end. You can have everyone die, or you can have like you can try and save everyone, or if there's a character that you don't like, Emily, you can just axe them off. You're like, screw this character, just kill her, please. Like if there's just
Killed.
and I love it.
I killed them all before I saved them all because I felt
Can't have
better.
that emotional attachment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
But-
camera
Always
work.
go for the genocide run first, kids.
They're just
And-
pixels on a screen, man. They don't
Ugh.
matter.
And like the the camera work in a good horror movie is so important. Like the way that you can set up different like environmental kind of like creepy atmosphere moments or jump scares. Like using the camera is so important, and they do
I have
such a
theory.
good job with like utilizing the camera to set up certain like scary moments and stuff. So well.
I have a theory about horror movie camera angles.
Oh,
And my thought is this: Dutch angles, they're creepy, right?
Yeah.
they can be.
Just turn the camera sideways. Forget about it. I don't want to see. I don't wanna know
figured
what's
it
going
out.
on. Yeah, turn the camera sideways.
You have realized
The ultimate
peak
Dutch
horror.
angle, 90 degrees.
Yeah,
I think
no,
that's a genius theory.
I replayed the game. I had a friend of mine. She had never played it before, and so I was basically watching her play. And there were moments where she would get too scared, so I would take the controller and do certain like, control parts for it. But it's a great thing. Like it's one of the few games where like, you can sit down with a bunch of people and they can just have fun watching it because it's not
Yeah.
super.
It's like a
game-heavy.
movie.
Yeah, it's an interactive movie, and it's probably the best example of that kind of.
Yeah, I think Until Dawn, the first time I played it was with a group of people, and that was by far the most fun I've had playing that kind of game. Because everyone's
feel
just like
like-
eventually like fighting with each other about what to do, and it gets very fun.
Yeah. There was another game that's similar to that company
There's-
came out with called Man of Medan.
Man,
Yeah,
if it
wasn't that like supposed to be a series of games?
They're coming out with the next one. I think they
It's
like.
Oh,
announced the next
they
one.
are.
Awful.
Okay.
Yeah,
Aw.
I heard it was bad.
Yeah.
I never played it, but I heard it was
That's
bad.
why the next one is kind of in doubt because it was not received very well.
Mhm.
It's just that it had the potential. It really
And-
did.
And I'm worried that because it's a series, they can't go as insane with the branching choices they were able to.
I thought it was going to be one of those sort of like
Oh, is
Not
it like an
analogous,
anthology thing?
anthology series. I thought that
I'm
was
not-
what they
I'm
were
not
going to go
sure.
for.
I don't know if they have.
There
like,
is. They're coming out with another one soon.
Are
Look
they?
this up. Oh,
But
one of the few times being live is helpful. Chat has the answer. It is Dark Pictures anthology Little Hope, which is on the
Right.
30th coming out.
Cute chat.
Little Hope, yeah, that explains the fan base.
It's
at this
called
point.
Little Hope.
Yeah,
Uh,
kind of
uh,
apt.
Wait, Eyebrow Man is in it.
Eyebrow man.
But no, I have to mention this character in this section of the game before I forget. But the section where you're in with the your therapist or like that psychiatrist.
Oh, it's the
The little
same
in-between section.
therapist.
are
It's the
they
same
are
therapist.
they are incredible. And I'm gonna give away that gimmick a little bit. I don't think it gives away too much, and I'm not gonna go into specifics. But there are moments where he's asking you. It's this weird, like, awesome, like fourth wall breaking kind of thing, where they're kind of addressing the audience, but also clearly a character at the same time who's also clear. It's so cool. But he'll ask you a ton of questions like, "Oh, what makes you more uncomfortable?" or "What makes you happy?" And then he'll change the environment of his office to reflect the choices you made. So, like,
Yeah.
if you were like, "Oh, this like pile of like severed hands creeps me out in this picture," in the very next sequence with him, there's a jar of severed hands right next to you, like
Yeah.
in eyesight the entire time. It's so creepy. It's so well done. And that actor, I forget his name off the top of my head.
He
He's
does a
famous-
fantastic job.
He is incredible. He's the best actor
Oh,
there.
he's
Everyone
so-
does a great job, but he is by far like the highlight in terms of like both the character and the performance. And it was so well done.
It's
Absolutely.
Pip Torrens. No. Wait,
No.
they made the curator look so similar. Never mind. In Little Hope.
Control.
Wait, what?
Control.
What?
I think
a
you
horror
got
game.
confused with the janitor.
Yeah.
Control's got some like horror elements to it. There were definitely moments
Yeah,
where
absolutely.
I was
I've been
creeped out.
playing it.
Do you guys know
does.
Will Poulter, the Eyebrow Man?
Yes,
Yeah.
I know who you're
With
talking
the
about. He was in Midsummer.
He's gonna.
Which-
Yes, I love Midsommar. Oh my god. So he's Will Poulter is the main dude in the new Little Hope game.
Interesting.
And that's why I screamed Eyebrow Man. Sorry.
Midsommar
You love
is a
that. You love that
movie-
actor so much you don't even know his name. It's
I love Will Poulter, but I forget people's names all the time. I'm not good with names.
Oh, no, yeah. I do
Midsommar,
too. I'm not the one to talk.
Midsommar
Oh, he really
a
is Eyebrow Man. You're
wonderful movie.
right.
Eyebrow Man. Yes, I love his eyebrows. I think they're awesome.
They're very recognizable. Like no other human being
Yeah.
on Earth looks like that. He
Pretty
kind of
much.
looks like the kid from that one like that Nickelodeon
Yeah.
Halloween
no.
movie where he like smiles for too long and then his face gets stuck like that.
No,
and
he looks
wears
like the
devil
dude from Toy
costume.
Story,
Oh my god.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
or
he
him.
absolutely does.
but he dressed up as that on purpose one day.
And
Good.
we're all coming from a place of love. We all love Will Poulter.
Oh yeah.
Everyone,
No, yes.
how can you not love Will Poulter?
He was great in Midsommar.
He was Midsommar is a wonderful.
It is something else.
It is a wonderful.
Yeah, I think that's also
Yes.
something else to talk about with Until Dawn is like it uses actors for.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was one of the first like games to really heavily go into using actual actors in the scenes, acting like they would,
I
and not
recognized
just doing like the facial animation.
obviously Josh because it's Rami Malik. I was like, I don't want to say this wrong. Hayden Panettiere, obviously, I recognize her.
Right.
And I might recognize the. Oh my god, the blonde one. I don't know what her name
Yeah.
is.
Did you?
Yeah,
Did you recognize her?
her name's Megan. She plays Tess Tyler in Camp Rock. I recognized her.
Oh my
I love that that's the connection you make immediately.
Of course, it's Camp Rock,
Of course.
and she plays someone named Tess. Of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
True.
I mean, she was kind of rude, but she was the rude one. But
No, but I mean I have nothing but good things to say about that game. It's one of those games where it's like
Wonderful
I'm
game.
sure there are problems, but like I don't have like I
It's,
have no
it's also
complaints.
short enough that I think the issues don't stand out as much as they would.
Mm.
Like it's a lot more forgivable because when there are issues, you're only ever dealing with them for around like 5 minutes at the most.
wait, so who's your favorite character?
I don't
Oh.
remember any of their names.
Yeah, well I'm just bad with names in general. Who's the glasses jokey guy? What's his name?
Oh,
The
Chris.
glasses jokey guy.
The guy with the short blonde hair?
Chris.
Chris, yeah. I think that like Chris I loved his relationship with what's her name?
Ashley.
Good job.
Chris and Ashley. Like I kind of latched on to that kind of like
I love
romance
Sam.
immediately.
I love Sam.
Sam, yep. Definitely.
Not because
And,
I love Hayden Panettiere or anything, but I love Sam.
Good. She's a good actor.
I still think Rami Malek's character is one of the better portrayals of like just an unsettling character in a horror game that you
Yes.
just don't.
Well, he just
know
has a
why.
face. He just has a face that makes you feel uncomfortable.
It's the
Not
fa-
all the
he makes-
time because
He
I've
makes
seen him
those
act in
facial
other things,
expressions
and
where you're like, "What are you
yeah.
up to?"
It's
he
the
has a
facial
good face for
expression.
mocap.
But it's also a lot
Wait,
of
this
it
is so. This is the psychiatrist man, right?
No, we're
No.
talking
No, that's
about
Josh.
Oh,
It's Josh. The
it's Josh. Okay.
It's the dude who not owns the cabin, but it's his parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because I was gonna say he's that man's very unsettling as well.
Well, it's interesting
Well,
because
he's
like all
meant
the
to be
characters.
unsettling.
I know, but
it'll-
it's really interesting. I think the one part where he's like the most unsettling is where because like when you first meet him, like everything seems
He's
like kind of
off.
okay. Like he's a little off, but there's like one point where he gets upset at something you say, and you're like, wait, a psychiatrist really shouldn't be getting mad at their client, and that's when you're like, okay, this is just not good.
But
Like,
the great thing about it is that like he's very off in the beginning, but
Yeah.
I mean the beginning of the game explains why he's a little off. So it's not that surprising, but it's noticeable, and he does such a good
yeah,
like job of not going over the top. But the great thing about all the characters for me is that it's like there isn't a character that I like. There are characters that I disliked, but that's because they were doing their job well.
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
was the point. There was never a character where I felt like this character doesn't work. Like
Yeah.
they found a perfect actor that who like it was perfect for their role. There was never a character where it's like I hate this character and I'm supposed to hate this character, Emily, because they're a giant piece of shit. But like that's the point. You're supposed to hate Emily.
like Emily, but I like everyone in their own way.
Yeah.
I just
And I think there is Until Dawn is a little bit tropey, especially the characters,
Very
but it's tropey for a reason. I think.
yeah.
It's
Well,
like,
again,
there
it
are
brings up
reasons
the
to
cabin
play
in the
those
woods
tropes.
thing.
Yeah.
It's the cabin in the woods thing that I brought up.
I'm
Not to
gonna
give away
say-
cabin in the woods, but
One thing that's not a spoiler, but when Emily smacks Ashley and she's like, recognize the back of my hand, B word, and then smacks her. So good. So
That was
iconic.
great.
So iconic.
That was
Or when
great.
or when she's like, it's just a praying hand. And I'm
oh
like,
my god, a classic.
She's got that Valley Girl voice. It just
Yes.
it's so perfect. She's so
I
perfect.
feel like I
hate it.
know people in real life that would say that exact line of "It's just a prank."
Just get
And
over
that
it.
I mean,
is
you just got to go on YouTube and you hear it all the time.
Yeah, but I think the way her character portrays it is just so great because it's less like the YouTube ones and more like just someone with a venomous
That-
personality
yeah.
that you
Someone who
really
just-
don't want to be around.
Right.
well, most of the girls are annoying except Sam. She's unproblematic.
Yeah, but that's how horror movies and horror media tends to need. You need characters that are like that,
Tis the
or
trope.
else it's not as fun to watch. Unless you're
I
doing
like-
like some kind of deconstruction of horror.
I like Mike a lot too. Well, he redeems himself. He was kind of a
Mike's the black-haired one that's not Remy Malik, right?
Yeah.
He's the one that is like on his own for like
He-
probably the longest amount of time because he goes.
Oh! He's the
Yeah.
one who was played by what else was that actor in? Agents of Shield is the only thing that I know.
Brett
from-
Dalton is. I have the fandom page open right in front of me.
Scared me with my own
Fandom.
name. I thought it would be Yelbad.
It's you.
See,
Brett.
he would be good in a horror game.
You are Mike.
I fooled all of you, even
But no,
myself.
it's like
Wow.
it's one of the few instances where
intense.
like every single character works. Like there's never a character that feels out of place or there's never a bad performance. It's just everything fits into place so well. It's fantastic.
It's like a good story or something. Crazy.
What?
Yeah.
And these people clearly understand horror too, to
Yeah.
like such a degree. Definitely.
Yeah. All right. I think that is pretty much all of it for our horror game roundup.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're about where I was hoping we'd be. We're an hour 20 minutes in, so we have enough time to cover up the last bits of news and extraneous horror talk, Halloween preparations for the podcast, which we don't have any. There's no Halloween special. This
This is
podcast
it.
comes out on Tuesdays, so this is as close as you're getting. But yeah, it's always interesting because I think a lot of us don't play a lot of horror games, at least not during the year,
Speak for yourself.
for the most part. Aside from Tess, but, like Tess is our resident horror expert, so I think horror games as a genre tend to not be up there with like people playing them consistently throughout the year. It's more of I think people will like get into horror around Halloween and play more.
Yeah. Well, you'll see more
yeah.
horror by watching my Twitch.
Ooh, plug.
What a plug, yeah.
Let me insert myself in there real quick.
It's a podcast. Subscribe
This
to the
happens.
podcast on Anchor on your podcast platform of choice.
Yeah, skip the podcast. Just give me some money. My PayPal's
All
in the
right,
description.
Nope,
All
nope.
right,
That's
oh.
too much. Too
Oh,
much.
wow.
Came so
Oh, wow.
close.
Oh man.
Oh wow.
There's the fourth wall. It's gone now. All right. But yeah, and does anyone have extraneous bits of like Halloween related games, things they want to talk about?
I have.
I feel like I did. And then
yeah,
forget.
I
We
have
talked
something
about a
that's
lot
not-
of it during the conversation.
Yeah. I will say, look, okay, all right. I want to preface this by saying Aliens Colonial Marines is a bad game, and if you do not own a PC, you should not play the game. However, if you do own a PC and you're willing to, fuff around with some mods and get the Templar GFX mod up and going, which is this massive overhaul mod, it can actually be quite a decent horror action game.
Provided
feel
you
like
pick it
Ryan-
up for a small amount of money.
I got it for
Yeah.
$5. If you get that game for $5,
I would say
on
like
PC,
5 to 15, good price for it with the mod.
Yes, because
Anything
I
above
think-
that, I would feel cheated.
Yes,
Mhm.
because the biggest improvement, like there's a lot of graphical improvements, there's a lot of sound. It really like overhaul is almost an understatement because it changes almost everything.
It's almost like to remake levels.
Yeah, it's kind of insane. It's kind of insane. But if you can get that up and going, it is actually in a select few levels, it's a very good like horror action game because the xenomorphs actually move the way they're supposed to, which means they're fast, they blend in with the environment, and they crawl in places that you wouldn't expect them to be. And their AI is smart enough where they're actually trying to corner you and surround you. So it's a legitimately it's a legitimately terrifying game sometimes, especially because they made great use of like their like motion sensor. You have to pull the tracker out and you can see where they are around you with like pulses and stuff like that. It becomes a legitimately kind of like an effective action horror game.
I love how they play that with like instead of having a normal mini map, you have to pull out your motion tracker and watch.
And it
just
adds
be
to the
horrified.
co-op. It adds to the co-op part of it because you can have one guy that's on the tracker and
Which
then one guy that's like.
We'll add, don't buy it for the co-op because it can just break.
I had
that experience a lot, and eventually like we just couldn't play through a level.
Unfortunately. But I do recommend it's still a really fun solo game, especially if you're an Aliens fan, because there are references all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, you get to go back to a lot of the same areas and stuff like that. But again, caveat being, you got to get it cheap and you got to get it on PC so you can mod it. If you're getting it on don't bother. Don't bother.
Yeah, well, I remember one of the worst things everybody was talking about with that game was the alien AI, just like literally ruining everything about the game.
Oh, they would walk on two legs. They would just walk over to you, maybe swipe at you, and then just kind of stand there and like wait for you to shoot them. It was the most pathetic AI.
Were so useless,
ever.
they weren't scary. Exactly.
Here, yeah, they're fast, and the crazy thing is they crawl in and out of walls and like the ceiling and stuff, and they go in spots that you don't normally expect enemies to go in first-person shooters. So they're constantly throwing you off, which is great. So it was so much fun when I played it.
Has any of you guys played the new Phasmophobia game?
I've heard a lot about it, but
I do not have a VR headset with me, so I can't. Really...
Oh, is it
it's
VR?
Yeah,
I think there is.
Not going to be able to play it.
I don't think
it's
VR only. No, it's
I think it's
VR.
also regular, but the VR support is what I keep hearing is really good.
Yeah.
Because I want to play that with some friends. Like I told my roommate. I don't know if he wants me to say his name, so I'm just going to say my roommate. And I asked him if he wanted to play together, and he was like, yes. So I'm excited. I have a lot of people, since I love horror, were like, Tess, you should really get this game and play it. So.
One of my friends, like, listen, you yell at me for being a wuss, but one of my friends got that game and then spent like 10 minutes in the little like the trailer outside, and then went inside for like 2 minutes, and then decided he couldn't play it anymore, and then stopped playing.
That would
VR
probably
horror,
be
man.
me. That would probably
VR
be me.
horror is something.
I heard it's a lot more. I mean, it's a lot easier playing it with friends.
Yeah.
Than obviously like by
sure.
yourself, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, of course. It's been popping off really well. Like it's doing super well for the indie team that it's made by, I think.
Yeah, really.
Which is great. I always love to see indie games just doing really, really well.
Yes, that's
especially
so nice
unique ones.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I actually just bought it just now. So
there's also there's skipping off of the horror train a little bit. There's another like Halloween themed game I think is still really fun. Monster Prom, great.
Oh yes.
Halloweenish game.
Yes.
Where
yes.
It's a competitive like mini dating simulator that takes about like an hour to run through, and it's like four people that try to just go at it, and you're essentially competing with each other to get like the best ending.
It kind of feels like an extended almost like it feels like if they took the small basis of like a Jackbox game and stretched it out into its own game, is what
because it's absolutely, when you say dating sim, it's not like a dating sim, right? That is not the kind of game you're getting. You're getting like high school shenanigans.
I'm not someone that likes dating sims at all, but this was so much fun.
Creatures. It's a ton of fun.
It is so much fun.
It's a baiting sim.
It's incredibly great if you can get your friends to voice act all the characters as well. That's always just really, really fun.
Oh yeah, get a couple drinks down. Everyone's doing their own voice work and stuff. It's a true bonding experience with your friends.
Yeah, and it's super replayable as well. And you can play it alone. I haven't done it. I assume it's not nearly as much fun.
That sounds really depressing.
is just playing
To
it
be honest with
normally
you.
because it seems like it wouldn't be that funny, but you can. And it is currently $3 on Steam because the sequel just released. So if you're interested in that game, you have time to pick it up. I think it's on sale on other platforms too. But yeah, the sequel just came out, and I am very curious to try it. I'd absolutely love to.
Oh,
Alright.
oh, did it?
Yeah, it came out I think today. So
Oh, I did not
Well
know
done.
that.
actually 2 days ago. Wait, today's a Sunday. It wouldn't have come out.
Is
Oh,
it the same like characters? I'm assuming it's probably a different.
It's a handful of the same and a handful of new. So it's like
Oh,
a
okay.
thing, and it takes place in like a campground instead of the. It's on essentially like the school retreat, from my knowledge. So
We should play this for our 001 party.
absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
I will hook that up on my Switch and bring it because
Yeah.
man, great
It's
game.
that good. It is so good.
Yeah. All right. So that's all of our Halloween games. We've got a few tiny bits of news that we'll go over, and then we're gonna let everyone go and have a nice Halloween weekend. Halloween. You know, because
Yeah, it's Halloween.
the
Yeah,
Tuesday.
Happy
Sorry.
Weenie Howell.
For my party.
And then yeah. So we don't have any major news. We had the NBA 2K21 thing, which happened at the end of the last podcast. This happened, and we talked about it very
Yeah.
briefly.
We're never in time for the new news.
Yeah, it's still basically the biggest news. We were in time last week. We caught it before the end.
Oh,
Yeah, that was the most on
we
time
caught
we've
it
ever been.
midway through, and it's
Breaking
still
news.
it's still like the essentially the biggest news of the week. Apex Legends.
That's
is
not
coming to
true.
Steam.
That's not true.
What?
You know what the biggest news of the week is,
What?
Ryan? The Atari VCS will be
Uh-huh.
available almost around the exact same time as the PlayStation 5 for a cool $380 something dollars.
That number hurts.
That sounds worth it.
Oh
For-
yeah.
oh,
Oh yeah.
how interesting.
Man,
So-
I don't
You can
wish
pre-order it
any
now,
failure on the Atari VCS, but it's coming out at the worst possible time at the
You say
worst
that, but-
possible price.
You say that, but so much of this feels like I gotta be careful with my words here. I don't. This is the kind of thing where like you post something like this on like an Indiegogo campaign and then nothing ever comes of it. You know, just
Yeah.
like shady. Where did our money go? Kind of thing, and it just like I don't know. There's just so many like sketchy vibes that I'm
So-
getting.
Yeah, this is
From
the
this.
first time I've heard of / seeing this, and it's giving me Soldier Boy vibes.
Yeah, I was
Well,
gonna say
thi-
the same thing.
Well, this has been in development way longer than Soldier Boy. I think they first announced
Since
this
the
like
1970s?
no, they first announced this system like 3 or 4 years ago, and they've been working on it ever since then. They've had multiple Indiegogos. They had an Indiegogo that they canceled the day it was supposed to go live. Like,
Oh, that's
They also
Ugh.
showed off like hardware, quote unquote, at like it was CES or something like that, where it was actually just like a Linux PC that was like running what kind of looked like their hardware. So they were lying about, you know, the fact that it was actual hardware. Like just the whole thing is so sketchy.
I'm trying to figure out what you
Oh,
guys
yeah.
are talking about, and all I see is Soldier Boy faces 10 years in prison for fake game content.
Soldier,
There it
the Soldier
is.
Boy was a Game Boy rip-off console that Soldier Boy made. Made is
Oh,
not
but
actually
it
the
wasn't just that.
appropriate
He had an
word,
entire
but
website with an entire range of like
It was ridiculous.
they're basically those like cheap they're
Plug
usually
and
like
play.
they're
cheap
usually like
knockoff consoles that run
the
they're
right.
usually
McDonald's
like-
video games that you'd find.
Yeah.
and then they just have a ton of like crappy NES ROMs and stuff like that.
Which is
Maybe
also
that.
illegal. Like,
But there
Oh,
is, but they weren't even like he didn't even make them. You can literally buy the exact same unit on Amazon for like a third of the price. It was insane.
Why did he do that?
Yeah.
What was,
Yeah.
going,
Wouldn't
the
you like to
question.
know?
what was going through his head?
Soldier Boy, tell him.
He's been at what can I say?
He woke up and
Yeah.
said, I know what I can do today. He streams on Twitch. He gets a pretty decent amount of followers.
yeah.
Like, yeah, he
Yeah, well,
streams.
imagine.
But he plays games like Fortnite and stuff like that.
He
Oh,
must have like a Wheel of Fortune thing where he's like, "What crazy thing am I gonna do this year?" And he just spins it and like sees
Yeah.
what happens.
He-
How
I'm
can
a
I
Twitch
stay
streamer.
popular?
How can I stay
Scam a lot of
relevant?
people with a fake game console.
Scam people. It's because he's mad because he's not popular anymore.
Well,
Yeah.
Are we gonna get in
Scam.
trouble for calling it a scam? I mean,
I don't think so.
I'm not
Oh,
saying
yeah.
it isn't, but like, are
He's-
we allowed
I
to
mean,
say that?
The news articles say that it was a fake console and he's under house arrest. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Fair.
And that he's looking at 10 years of jail. So I would say that it's safe to say that it was
Yeah.
a scam.
I mean, it was pretty
If there's-
universally the Soldier Boy stuff was a scam.
If there's jail time involved.
Because
You
there
wanna
were also
say-
people
you could
literally
say-
found it
What are you gonna do?
was-
Rap about it?
It was a Chinese
He's
console
gonna create a
knockoff.
song about this.
You
Like, there
could
was
say
literally the same thing.
he wanted to Superman that game industry.
All right.
Okay.
We're getting too off the beaten track here. This is old news. We got current news to talk about. Something interesting that happened is that Cynthia Harrell, who is the woman who sang Snake Eater and some of the Castlevania, one of the major Castlevania songs, finally like got found and talked to again because she kind of vanished off the face of the planet. Not really,
On
but
purpose?
no. She just like basically she only ever did those things for games because she
Yeah.
knew someone at Konami who was working on Castlevania and Metal Gear and was asked to do those songs and then basically completely left the industry, or not the industry, but never interacted with it again. And did a bunch of like backing vocals for talented music artists and whatnot. So it's just super interesting to see that like there was a theory for a while that she was dead because people couldn't
I'm
figure out
glad
who
she's
she was. So it's interesting to finally see that like yeah, this was a cool thing that Snake Eater still has that impact today, which is cool.
Trying so hard not to
Uh,
sing.
Kojima Productions
it's very
is
difficult
hiring.
not to say.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, so they're hiring for a new game project, which is interesting because they had said before that they might be looking into doing movies at some point. So the next thing they're
Yeah.
working on is presumably a game, which is interesting little bit of news. Fortnite has a massively reduced file size now, which is just one of those things
mean-
that I'm like,
Nice.
yeah, be great if
Nice
some
to
other
have.
games like could do that. Start compressing
you
things a
know.
little better.
I know a certain game that could do that.
It kind of does that. Kind of.
Mm,
It's
how
been doing it.
does-
They've been
It's
trying.
been okay. They have been like decreasing its install size, and you can also now uninstall different like modes of the game.
You could do that
So like,
before, though.
so like, I uninstalled campaign. No, you couldn't.
Yes, you could.
No, you
Not
couldn't.
not on
This is the
PC.
game
Not on
came out.
PC.
Oh,
No.
okay.
No, you couldn't. So like,
On
I
console
freed
you
up-
could, but not on PC.
I did not know
That's
that.
weird.
But on PC, I uninstalled Spec Ops and campaign and freed up 70 gigs, like almost 70 gigs on my SSD. So
Yeah.
good for them.
All right, back to news. We have Darkest Dungeon 2 got announced and is going to be coming out at some point. We don't
Mhm.
know when, but it's shifted into 3D and looks really, really good for a 3D take on Darkest Dungeon art style. Very excited about that. Rainbow Six Siege is coming to Game Pass for console.
Mm.
Okay,
Interesting.
not for PC.
That's really the
Yeah,
scariest
that's-
thing to have happened today.
Okay.
That's just a big question mark for me. Is it's coming to console and Android? Or
Wait.
I'm just like,
Wait, stop. Wait. Oh, Game Pass on Android. Okay, I thought you meant that it was
no,
like,
no, no, no.
coming
Yeah,
to-
Game
to,
Pass
like, Google Play, and I'm
streaming
like,
to Android.
excuse me.
Flighting for Halo 4 PC has started, so Halo 4 will be coming pretty soon.
Oh,
And for those who don't know,
Everyone's-
flighting
everyone's
is essentially 343's term for like testing
Yeah.
Halo stuff,
Mhm.
which is cool. So that'll be coming pretty soon. We don't know exactly when, but soon. That's most of the news, to be honest. We have
No,
Amnesia
no.
Rebirth news.
There's a couple.
review
There's a
thread.
couple things that I would like to bring up.
All right,
so-
Wyatt.
Okay.
End the
Um,
podcast before he can.
Just because I think they're interesting.
Wyatt, get to them. Come on.
Okay, all right. There's a lot of
You're
people
apologizing
that have
before
been-
you say.
There's
the
a lot
thing.
of people. Can I say it now? Thank you.
No, you can't.
Do I have the floor, Ryan? Okay.
We don't have
So,
a floor. This
There's
is we're in
been
Discord.
a lot of reports of people getting their PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S pre-orders canceled on various websites
Oh.
because apparently the website did not they got the math wrong and there was a lot of people that where they were shown that they had a pre-order and they didn't. So a lot of people's pre-orders are just getting canceled like unceremoniously, which is kind
They
of
get their money back?
I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know.
they do.
Probably.
Okay.
You
I was
get
gonna
you
be
get
like,
refunded. Yes.
The other really interesting one is GameStop has entered a partnership with Microsoft.
Yeah, so the reason we weren't talking about this is because right now we really have no information on what this actually entails. We know that Microsoft is essentially partnering with them, and right now it seems very one-sided, like Microsoft is helping GameStop out.
Right.
The reality
They
is
need
there's likely a lot more to this that we don't know yet.
But I did think it was worth mentioning in its early.
Yeah, so worth mentioning, we really, anything we say right now about it is super subject to change because we do not know the
Yeah.
details of this deal.
Right.
So
And
talking
knowing our
about it's
luck,
really hard.
more information will come out the next day or day after.
It'll be the next like Halo January build thing of we'll say
Yeah.
something immediately that'll get changed. So
Right.
yeah, it's hard to do that.
I mean, this
Another
announcement
Microsoft
is a
thing.
build from January, so
Yeah, absolutely.
gotta
all
work
of,
it in there somewhere.
all of Mojang's games now are going to require Microsoft accounts, so they're moving away from old Mojang accounts.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
and
makes
the interesting thing they're doing, they're merging the reverse ways for the console versions of Minecraft if you want to carry your progress over from Java Edition, so you'll get your like Java name instead of your
Ooh,
Microsoft name, which is interesting.
interesting.
That's nice.
Doesn't really do anything specific, but it's just an interesting way that they're handling that. This was actually, we do have one interesting game developer thing. So the Serious Sam developer team, Crow Team, was acquired by Devolver,
Oh, that's right.
which Crow Team really hasn't done that much of note recently. Serious Sam 4 was just kind of okay. Released to very little of anything. Like I would say,
it released to a resounding.
yeah, that's good. Resounding yeah and crickets. I've heard it's both fun and bad from different people. So yeah, that game exists. They're now under Devolver. Yeah,
Which is probably good. If there's any publisher you want to be under, I feel like Devolver is a good place to be because they're usually a stamp of quality.
I mean, the weird thing to me is that
really
they've been acquired. It's not they're publishing for them; they've been acquired, which is a little bit of a different deal.
Okay, right. But still, though, being associated with Devolver, I think is a good thing. They're a publisher that I think has a lot of good.
Yeah, especially because
rep
Serious
with a lot
Sam
of
is
people.
up Devolver's alley. 100%.
Oh, definitely. Either like old like games that have an old fashioned feel to them, or literal older franchises that are like still releasing games. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they also publish Dragon Warrior, right? I think. Right?
I don't
Or-
want to
I don't know.
say that
Or,
because I don't know.
Hold on, wait. It's in my Steam library. I can. tell
Shadow
you.
Warrior?
It's a
you
good
mean?
game.
Shadow Warrior. That's what I meant.
Shadow
I'm
Warrior.
sorry.
Yeah, you said Dragon Warrior. I was like, wait.
No, Shadow Warrior.
Yes,
My bad.
Shadow Warrior. They do.
Which is like that's
Game's
another
fun.
old like FPS franchise that's seen a revival recently. So it's very
Yeah.
much there.
Very,
There
very
we go.
good revival. Those games are amazing.
They're great.
The more recent ones. Humor is not for everyone, but the gameplay itself is fantastic.
Yeah, the humor. Well, anyway.
Yeah. Okay, and the last like major thing is Immortals Phoenix Rising demo on Stadia has been in the hands of people, and people have gotten to play it.
It looks really cool. I'm excited for it.
Yeah,
honestly.
general impressions have been. I think two things are there are a lot of people that seem to be a little disappointed that it's maybe not as unique as they had hoped. From what I'm hearing, it does play very much not quite like Breath of the Wild, but more a fairly standard third-person action game with just a unique setting, which I think will definitely be disappointing to some people.
I think
it's Ubisoft, right?
my biggest worry. I'm not the biggest fan of the character design.
Yeah,
And mostly because they remind me of the newer like Xbox One, like your Xbox account avatar, like the new version. That
what they
recently.
remind me of is the mobile games where it's like the face of a person screaming.
Yeah.
That's what they remind me of, and I really am not a huge fan.
Which stinks because everything else about it, I think, visually looks.
Oh yeah, I love a lot of the
it
armor
looks
designs and whatnot.
Wonderful.
There's been some really cool environments. I've heard the gameplay's fun if you're into that style of game, but it isn't
feels
groundbreaking.
I saw a lot of things that felt very like Assassin's Creed Odyssey to
Although I have heard it plays very differently, but similar vein.
I think yeah. If you're in that ballpark, I think it's probably going to be a safe bet in that respect.
Yeah, just don't expect it to be super different. I think is the going in takeaway. And the Watch Dogs Legion comes out a few days after this podcast comes out.
Speaking of recent releases at the same time, Doom Eternal, what is it, the Ancient Gods, I think is what it's called. That new DLC also just dropped very recently. And it's probably just going to be more Doom Eternal, which is never a bad thing. So
I mean, Doom is kind of a horror-ish game.
Well,
It's
like an
more
inverse
like
horror.
reverse horror.
It has some
They're
horror
scared of you.
aspect to it.
yeah, there's like demons and stuff.
It was so
Would you-
non-committal, Ben.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's like I don't know.
There has some horror aspects to it.
Yeah,
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna cut us off there because I think we're hitting that point of incoherency. So
I'm correct.
that means it's time to do shoutouts. Alex,
okay.
you're first because you were first.
Thank
the
you.
start,
I,
so.
I also have something to be at. Not that I don't love being on here with you guys, but poor scheduling.
Yeah.
Okay. Shout out to this amazing mint scented hand sanitizer that I just can't stop sniffing.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's good.
Amazing.
Are you sure that was
Don't
hand
do drugs,
sanitizer?
kids.
Yeah,
Was that
Wow.
intense?
Yes.
I'm not sure.
that was intense.
I've heard that sound before, but not from sniffing hand sanitizer.
That was intense.
Careful.
All right, moving
Family
on.
friendly.
Cut her
Ben,
mic! Cut her mic!
Ben,
Sugar,
right.
sugar.
Thank you
Me?
guys. I gotta go. It was nice
Oh.
being with
All
you.
right, see you.
Bye.
Have
Oh,
an excellent
bye.
rest
Hey,
Have a
of
see
your
you,
good
day.
man.
night. Have a good night.
Is it me?
yes,
too,
it's
guys.
you.
And for all you who watching.
Shout out to Path of Exile, except like an anti shout out because it sucked me back in again, and I can't escape. So that's
It's like a
that.
shout out because it's too enjoyable.
Yeah, shout out because it's way the game's just too good. I hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
hate having fun.
Brett.
Last week I was like 30 hours into Xenogears. I'm 50 hours into Xenogears, and it's still really good, but it's
Wow.
so
But it won't end. It
It
sounds
won't.
like
Xeno games are
Sounds
always
like
at least
Xenoblade
100
2.
hours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had to climb up a tower today with platforming.
I remember playing Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and I was like, oh, it's still going.
I
It's
played
another act.
a little bit
Is
of
it-
it on my my Switch because my friend let me borrow it, and it was I only played like a couple hours of it. It was pretty interesting, but it doesn't seem like a game that I would like. But I can understand why other people would like
Yeah,
it.
it's very, very heavy JRPG.
Yes.
Hey, Wyatt.
Oh, it's my turn. Oh boy. Shout out to the Halloween game mode in Call of Duty called Onslaughter, where you have two teams and there's a juggernaut suit like pack in the middle of the map, and both teams have to fight to acquire it and then like fight their way in the juggernaut suit to the enemy base. And it's awesome. And they also have nighttime version of all the maps with it as well, and it is so much fun, and I wish it could stick around because I think it's probably one of the best like modes in the game, legitimately.
Yeah. Right. Tess?
Shout out to Will Poulter.
You know? That's because my shout out's for Rami Malek.
Oh.
Hey!
There you go.
Shout out to the main characters of.
There's people who know their roles really, really well in Until Dawn.
Yes, well, I think this game is probably going to be so good because it has Will Poulter in it.
Just because of
It's
Will
30
Poulter.
I hope
It has-
Nothing
it's-
to do with the game.
Will Poulter was in Man of Medan, right?
No, there was like no known actors in Man of.
No, he was in
Man
Man
of
of
Medan.
Medan.
No,
Talking
he
about.
wasn't.
I think
He
he
was.
might have been. Man of Medan had one person.
I saw like a trailer or something with him.
It was me.
In it.
It was me. I'm
He
sorry. It was me.
not in it.
Oh, it's always you, isn't it? You sneak it in there.
Listen, I am the worst horror movie protagonist. I
That's
had.
true.
I had
If
to
he
do
was in
somewhere.
it, I would have known. He's not. You're probably thinking of the blonde dude. That is not Will Poulter. Don't you ever disrespect.
My
The
God.
blonde dude.
Yeah, there is a blonde dude who looks like vaguely reminiscent of Will Poulter, but without the eyebrows.
You're right.
Yeah.
It's
That's like-
Sean Ash. I
Will
was thinking
Poulter
of Sean
sans
Ashmore.
eyebrows, who's not Will Poulter.
It's
I
the
was
dude.
thinking. I was thinking of Sean Ashmore.
All
I'm
right,
sorry.
all right. We're in.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
We're done. I'm gonna play the outro. The outro's playing right now.
This always happens every single time. It's so chaotic. It's just,
That's the point of the ending. We try to be on task for the start, but once we get to the end, you know, if you're still around, we hope you're just having fun.
I didn't even know about this game. $30 though.